College Volleyball Weekly, The Beach Report, with Charlie Ekstrom of Stanford, Mads Fitzpatrick of Florida State, and Rob on the mic. Now here are your hosts with the Weekly Report.
Hey, good day, everyone. I'm Rob Espero with the Viral Volley Podcast, and with me from the right coast, Florida State's Mads Fitzpatrick, and from the left coast, Stanford's Charlie Ekstrom, to recap yet another great week. Well, not so great for our two on the screen, but another phenomenal week of action in collegiate beach volleyball. Week 7 just concluded, and we're jumping into week 8. But let's talk about what happened in week 7. So, as always, what duels and matches stuck out for you ladies last week in week 7? We will start with you, Charlie, on this one, leading us off.
Ooh, so I'll have to say, to start off, I thought that a really, sorry to out Mads on this one, but a really exciting match was the FIU versus FSU match, where FIU actually ended up upsetting FSU on the weekend.
Now, there's some big play during that matchup. They get some new faces back in there for FIU, but obviously seeing FSU last weekend, that's a pretty strong team. Would you agree, Mads?
Oh yeah, I felt like we were super strong. We played a really hard game, but FIU just came out guns a-blazing, and they played us really tough. We'll definitely be ready for them next time, though.
I guess they had one of their top players back, Ali Denny, back in their lineup, and that was the difference maker, I guess, in that duel. It was a 3-2. So, things are shaping up a little differently now on that coast in the CCSA. Let's have Mads. How about you? What duels or matches stuck out for you last week?
So I have always thought it's really hard to beat a team 3 times, and that was shown last week. Cal Poly beat Hawaii 2 times with a 4-1 and a 3-2, and then Hawaii beat Cal Poly 5-0. So that'll be kind of interesting. It's just a toss-up to see who's the better team, and they both kind of proved it. They're both good teams, but yeah, it's hard to beat a team 3 times.
Well, I'm going to jump into the mix, and I feel like I'm going to just not hurt someone here on the screen, but Arizona with an upset win over Stanford 3-2 was a big win. I was watching some of the footage that was coming up on social, but it looked like they really had their act going. They were dialing on all cylinders, and they were, it's not that they were a bad team by any means, but I think coming in with a team as hot as Stanford, as we know, they had the big jump last week in the polls, all the way up to 7, and then coming in and beating them, edging them out. But Charlie did mention Stanford just beat them last week too, so they're 1-1 against each other. But I'm sure we'll be talking about the polls a little bit in our discussion. Let's go for another one that caught your eye this week. Did you want to add something, Charlie?
Oh, I was just going to say Arizona had a fantastic weekend, and they played very well, a very strong matchup. And I'm excited for the next time that we face them, because like you mentioned, we are 1-1 now. And so now it's kind of going to be that like last battle, probably at the Pac-12 championships is what I'd see us playing next. But then I can add our next game that kind of was a standout, was also at the Pac-12 South this weekend that I actually got to watch because we were about to hop on right after it ended, was the upset of Cal by ASU. And that was a huge win for ASU, because at the time they were unranked, and that win over number 11 Cal ended up jumping them up into the rankings, into the top 20 for the first, maybe second time this season. And so that was a huge up for ASU.
Yeah. How about you, Mads? Got another one for us?
Yeah, I was happy to see Pepperdine defeat Long Beach State. I know they've had kind of a rocky season, but I was looking forward to that matchup, and I'm glad that Pepperdine came out on top.
Yep. Well, it's funny. All the polls have now officially come out, and versus last week, 75% of the poll had movement. In week 7, it's down to maybe just under half, with the biggest movers moving up 3, which is Arizona. Sorry, Charlie. And then Stanford moving down the most at -3, at least in the college beach volleyball poll. In the AVCA poll, not a lot of movement there in the top 6, still the same with the exception of LSU moving in front of FSU. Sorry, Mads, but we'll talk about this in a little bit. But then it just gets super tumultuous from 7 on the rest of the way. That's TCU, GCU, Arizona, Stanford, Pepperdine, Cal, FIU, FAU, Hawaii, and South Carolina, all moving. So we're seeing this last few weeks of the season, this push I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on what's happening here with only 2 weeks remaining as athletes competing on those actual courts and grinding it out against some of the better teams in the nation. We'll start with you, Mads.
Yeah, per usual, towards the end of the season, we see that last really hard push, and there are a bunch of really big upsets that can switch up who gets picked to go to the national championship. So now more than ever, these last few weeks are very imperative when it comes to the picking to see who gets to go.
Yep. How about you, Charlie?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Mads anymore. I think that this is kind of like the crunch time, especially for teams that don't have conference play. Some of those non-conference teams like GCU, that are, I think TCU is out of conference as well, but they kind of have these last 2 weeks before other teams go into conferences to where they can kind of get that extra up in conference tournaments. If they don't have that conference tournament, then they've got to really perform and really just kind of get to grinding and finishing up in these last 2 weeks before Gulf Shores.
Yeah, and I learned that last week in speaking with Tegan DeFalco of Grand Canyon. They just have to make a statement by beating teams, and I believe they're 11-5 or 16-5 at this point. They only have 5 losses with some quality wins. So these last 2 weeks are going to be crucial for them to make a statement to the NCAA selection committee for the at-large berth. So let's jump on to our next topic that we usually discuss is who are some of the top teams that we saw competing this last week in week 7?
Yep. There's a weird bounce back.
Yeah.
We
may have to re-record that one.
Yeah,
Are you getting that go still?
No, I think it's fixed.
Oh, that's weird.
Okay, I'll just go into it.
No, let me just re-ask it and I'll just edit that in.
Okay, cool.
All right. So we've talked about the matches and duels that caught our eyes last week. Who are some of the top performers, the pairs that really caught your eye in week 7? We'll start with you, Mads.
So I'm going to throw it to FIU. Their force pair, Hughes and Kalknoff. I'm not sure if I said that right.
You stole mine. Abby Hughes and Paige Kalkoff.
That's a good one. They're 11-0, and they clinched the win for FIU against us, FSU. And it was a tight third set, back and forth. And Hughes really impressed me. An undersized player, still swinging away as hard as she could. She balled out, so I definitely picked them.
Yeah, they are 11-0. I was doing my research on collegebeachvb.com, and they're one of 3 remaining undefeated pairs in the nation right now. So 11-0, good for Abby Hughes and Paige Kalkoff. How about you, Charlie?
Yeah, so I've got a couple teams or individuals and teams, but I think the one that stands out as an individual is Kristen Nuss coming on this weekend. She became the winningest player in the sport of beach volleyball this weekend. And I think that it's just such an awesome feat, for her, for the sport. I mean, it's really just incredible.
Yeah, she is definitely a warrior and a competitor. She leaves it all out on the court. I'm going to drop one in there as well. And it's not because we had Tegan DeFalco of GCU on last week, but a couple of her teammates, Alanis Navas and Paula Hoffman, are now 16-0 in the nation at that number 4 spot. So what's odd is, Matt, you brought up Abby Hughes and Paige Kalkoff. They also play at the number 4s. We have 2 number 4 teams that are still undefeated in the nation. So that will be I don't know if they'll ever cross paths unless it's going to be at Gulf Shores this year, but you got to ask who's the better of the 2 undefeateds at this point with them with such great records.
I would love to see that matchup. That'd be really exciting.
Now, something that I'm surprised I didn't hear one of you say was the change up in the USC lineup that resulted in the AVCA pair of the week, which just came out today as well. That's Tina Gradina and Megan Kraft. Kind of a shocker to see that matchup, but they did it this weekend. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the current AVCA pair of the week. And we'll start with you, Charlie, this time.
Yeah, so I actually had the opportunity to play against the 2 of them. And I think that it was so cool to kind of see Tina taking Megan under her wing. They split block as a pair. And I mean, it's not super common to see split blockers. I know that FSU ones does it, and there aren't very many other teams around that do it. And it was really cool. They performed at a really, really high level. They won I think they went 4-0, 8-0 on the weekend. With I think that we might have been the closest to come in our competition against them. But still, they played absolutely incredible volleyball and just did a great job and earned that AVCA pair of the week.
Yep. How about you, Mads? Any thoughts on that particular pairing?
Yeah, I was going to say I had never seen Megan Kraft play until we went to California, and I got to watch her. I think she was on the twos, play R2s. R2s came out victorious, but it was still awesome to watch her play. She's so long and powerful and so experienced for being so young. So that I think that AVCA poll, like coming out and voting for them, was dead on accurate. She's impressive. Tina Gradina is, Tina Gradina. So I thought
just a Latvian Olympian, no big deal.
Yeah.
FIVB pro, no big deal. Well, I'm going to throw a shocker question on you guys, just because in recent weeks we talked about who are some of the top names that are being considered as All-Americans. I'm curious as to who both of you think would be considered as Freshman of the Year or all freshman teams, because I feel like with COVID, it's kind of a gray area, because you have COVID first years and you have true first years, particularly with beach. So I'm just curious, you can throw a bunch of names out there. I know of a few, but I'd rather have the athletes themselves who are seeing them and competing against them chime in first before the guy who's the armchair quarterback says anything. So we'll start with you, Mads.
I would definitely say Delaney Maple is definitely a name that would be bouncing around there. I played her. She is a fierce competitor, so good at defense, and also very dynamic at the net. So yeah, Delaney Maple.
Yep. How about you, Charlie?
I'm going to plug my freshmen, Zolani Hodel and Kate Riley. They've been in pair of the week. They're both true freshmen, and they are just doing great things. They're a great pair.
I'm going to throw one in. TCU, Daniela Alvarez, I believe is her name. They were undefeated for a while this season, but still true freshman coming in and taking care of business. Back to you, Matt.
I'm going to shout out my girl, Kira Rutz. She was a freshman last year, but COVID happened, so I'm not really sure I think she's technically a freshman then, because this is her first full season. But she has been an absolute stud. I think only 2 losses on the season, playing with Tori at the twos. So I'm really rooting for her.
How about you, Charlie?
Well, Mads did steal Kira from me, but we gave her a slight shout out, but I want to re-shout out Megan Kraft, because she has bounced back around. I think she's bounced with 1s through 3s with USC and has been putting up wins at every single flight with multiple different partners, which I think is a challenging position to be put in as a freshman. And she's done it so well and so eloquently. I just really, really think that she's playing fantastic volleyball.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm throwing in there, and it's me, one of your gals, Mads, especially seeing her play in person after almost 2 years. Maddie Anderson has just become a physical beast in all the good ways for your program. And she's aggressive, has great sight. She's got great strength. She's got a wicked serve, and she puts up a really good block too. So you got some good years in front for Florida State with Maddie Anderson, and she's still playing the number 3s, which is crazy. I think she could play as high as number 1 if she wanted to. So
I completely forget that she's a freshman, just because I've known her for so long and she's been so good for so long. I vote Maddie Anderson 100% too.
Anyone else for you, Charlie?
Yeah, I was just going to say, now that I'm thinking about freshmen and COVID freshmen, a name that we left out, because I think that we all forgot that she's considered a freshman, is Lexi Denneberg.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
She is a powerhouse player. And I think that she's got so much experience that I kind of completely forgot that she's technically a redshirt freshman. And she's ridiculously good. We all know it.
I got to ask you, because so Maddie Anderson's from the Florida area, Lexi Denneberg and Riley Powers of UCLA are from that Florida area. Is there like this talent-rich pocket of Floridians, Mads?
There is, and there really is. And when Maddie and Lexi team up,
and Caitlin Moon too, one of your teammates.
I love that girl. They're all so big and powerful, but yeah, Florida's talented.
Anything else to add, ladies? Make sure, I know we probably skipped down on a few, but like I said, I caught you guys off guard because you get the true answer. Who's on the top of your tongues, So
yeah.
now one question came up. Oh, were you going to say something, Charlie? I'm sorry.
I was just going to give out one more pairs shout out because I was thinking about it, and I want to give a pair shout out to my teammates, Amelia Smith and Emmy Sharp. They're playing at our fives, and they had a really, really great weekend. They took a challenging UCLA team to 3. They beat the USC fives in 3, which were previously an undefeated pair. And I think that that's just a really good feat. It shows that, I mean, the depth of Stanford has grown so much. And I think that I'm so proud they're a senior and a freshman pair, and like the love between them is just so incredible. It makes me smile every single time. And I just got to give them a little shout out because they played some incredible volleyball this weekend.
The fave freshman, huh? Well, let's get to our final question of our normal weekly breakdown of what's happening in collegiate beach volleyball. But what duels will you be watching in week 7? And let's go back to Charlie to start off on this one.
Ooh, so I'm gonna have to look at it's called the Center of Effort Beach Volleyball Challenge. I believe Cal Poly is hosting it, and it is GCU versus Cal Poly that I'm looking forward to watching. Cal Poly being number 6 and GCU being number 8, I believe. I think that that's going to be a really, really challenging matchup, and I know that we went 3-2 with both of them. And so I think that that's going to be a really, really good battle to kind of see where everything pans out from there.
Yep. How about you, Mads?
I'm going to agree with that really fast. I think if GCU can pull that out, then they'll be a shoe-in for national championships, especially because they don't have a conference. So this is actually really big for GCU. But I'm going to say LMU versus Cal Poly. Both of those teams are pretty close to the top 4, and a win there would just definitely secure them a national championship appearance.
Oh, so spot on, because I was going to say I'm watching anything with LMU this week because they're hanging at the number 5 spot in all the polls. And they, they've got UCLA, USC, Cal Poly, Grand Canyon this weekend. It's make or break weekend. So no pressure for Loyola Marymount, but it's not like they're going to be short the talent. They just have quite the task because it's back-to-back days. So, there has to be a physical component going against the teams of this caliber back-to-back. So if they pull it out, hey, more power to them. And man, they'll have my vote anyway, any day of the week. But that is going to be a tough week. I mean, tomorrow we're recording on a Tuesday. I am at UCLA tomorrow for the doubleheader with LMU at UCLA. So that is going to be another test. So I'll be watching that. So I did twice. I'm sorry. Let's go back to the ladies. How about back to you, Charlie? Anything else you're watching?
Yeah. So another duo of matches that I'm going to be looking forward to watching is TCU versus LSU and TCU versus FSU. TCU has been hanging in the top 10, kind of wavering around that top 8 position. And I think that a win or high level of competition with them and LSU and FSU could be just that thing that could kind of seal the deal for them. I think they're kind of competing with FIU and FAU for that last East Coast spot. And I think that if they could pull off a win versus LSU or FSU, or even come at a higher level of competition than other ones, then that could kind of be their bid sealer.
Yep. How about you, Mats?
I'm going to do FSU versus LSU because LSU just jumped to 3 in the AVCA polls, and we just popped back down to 4. So it would be awesome if we could beat them and regain that number 3 ranking. reclaim, right? Yeah.
So that will be on Sunday, I believe, right? April 18th that you play LSU. Mm-hmm. Will that be streamed? Do you know?
I think so. It should be for sure.
I know that's only the top teams in the CCSA going at it. So if you're Instagram Live, if you know anyone, just definitely send a message out. So one team that's moved up quite a bit this week has been Arizona, and they moved up 3 in the AVCA poll, but they are playing at the Husky Invitational against University of Washington and Hawaii. We're still trying to figure out the play format for the weekend because they're going to end up, it looks like twice, but I could be wrong. I know they're doing a regular dual style play on Saturday and what's called a bracket play Sunday, but I want to see what Arizona is going to do if it is justified that big jump up forward in the recent polls, because as we all know right now, 5 through 12, 13 is just going to be a dogfight race because they're all trying to make the point to get consideration for the one of, is it 2 at-large berths for the tournament?
Yeah.
I'm confusing my men's now with a Collegiate Beach. So with that, ladies, anything else to add for this week's edition of College Volleyball Weekly?
One little note, UCLA also plays USC. So that's kind of a toss-up who's going to take back that #1 spot.
Oh, that's at the Center of Effort Challenge. They're going to go at it there? Is that?
Yes.
Wow. How did I skip that one?
Crazy. You're just tired.
Well, we got some good stuff coming up. We're going to have one more week of regular season coverage. Is that right? Because the week afterwards is going to be the conference tournaments.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's coming down to it.
So that will be the CCSA. We got the Pac-12s. We're going to have the WAC, WC, CC, you name it. It's going to be happening here, and we're going to be on top of it. I don't know how it's going to affect your guys' schedule. I'm hoping it won't, because I'm love having you ladies on. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Charlie Ekstrom of Stanford, Mads Fitzpatrick of Florida State, and I'm Rob Espero for College Volleyball Weekly Beach Edition. And it's glad to have you back, Mads.
Thank you. Good to be back. Missed you guys.
Good luck this week, ladies.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hey y'all, thanks for listening to today's episode of the Viral Volley Podcast. Be sure to follow Rob at Rob on the Mic on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or at robonthemic.com. Check you next time.